My name is Garima Raheja. I am a PhD candidate at Columbia University in the city of New York. Today I'm going to be talking a little bit about community-based science and decision-making for environmental justice.
No Cancer Alley in Ohio River Valley! What? No Cancer Alley in Ohio River Valley!
All across the country, we are reaching a tipping point. Communities that have long been put in the way of harm, sacrificed for profit, dug up for resources. These communities are fighting back for change, and they are fighting hard. Many of these movements are being led by youth who are skipping school to fight for a livable future. They're being led by moms, cash-strapped moms trying to find a place to live. Time and time again, we are seeing those who are most marginalized, those who are most at risk, put everything on the line to push for social change. But where have we been? Scientists have long been asked to stay apolitical, unbiased, completely neutral. But while we sit still, millions of communities around the country are facing the worst. In Belmont County, which is the most heavily fracked county in Ohio, a methane leak worse than Aliso Canyon largely went unnoticed in national media. For so long, we, as scientists, have worked to analyze the problems. We've worked to describe the problems. But where are we when it comes to solving the problems?
All of us as scientists have access to resources, to tools, to data sets, to skills that could be immensely beneficial to our communities. I can read a scientific paper in my field and tell you the gist of it just by skimming the figures for about an hour. For someone not in my field, for someone who doesn't do this every day, just getting through a method section could take a few hours. Honestly, just getting access to the papers could take a few hours and a couple $100. What else? As part of two institutions, UC Berkeley and Columbia University, my institutional emails give me access to 2 Google Drive accounts, both with infinite storage. So I have access to double infinite cloud storage, and to me, that's not a big deal. But to a community trying to document instances of illegal waste incineration by taking photos or store recordings of public meetings, access to this kind of cloud storage could have freed up thousands of dollars a year. So I ask you today to think of all the ways that your little institutional privileges could be having huge impacts on your community. Today, I'm going to tell you a little bit about how I've been able to get involved, how it's been, and what I've learned from it.
The first begins with me in California, zooming 2 incredible people, Beverly Reed and Barbara Mew, many time zones away in Bridgeport, Ohio. As Bev and Barb described what was going on in Ohio, my notes went way off the page and they never stopped. As hundreds more frack pads popped up every year, residents were getting mysteriously sick, the Ohio River was getting clogged with plastic nurdles, there was PFAS in their water, and on top of all of this, there was a huge ethane cracker plant being proposed right in the middle of their community.
To be honest, I'd never heard about any of this. I would maybe have gone years without hearing about this or ever actually knowing what was happening in Ohio was something I could help. But luckily, around the fall meeting last year, I was connected to the AGU Thriving Earth Exchange, an incredible network which supports communities and scientists in coming together for environmental justice.
Over the course of the year, working with Bev, Barb, and their nonprofit, the Concerned Ohio River Residents, we made a plan to install low-cost air monitoring equipment in different regions of the valley. We found ways to educate the public by sharing our findings, answering questions, and creating a space for citizens to bring forth their concerns. Together with Bev and Barb, and then we were joined by Ben Hunkler, Leatra Harper from the Freshwater Accountability Project, Lisa Fries, who is a PhD candidate at MIT, Anna Hoffman from the Carnegie Mellon Create Lab, Erica Jackson from the Frack Tracker Alliance, Deborah Larson from the Southwest Pennsylvania Environmental Health Project, and so many more incredible leaders, organizations, contributions, allies, and supporters. In November of 2020, we hosted 2 educational webinars explaining what's going on in the air, how citizens can get a free purple air sensor in their own home or a free air purifier for those really bad days, and more. Our work here is not done, but these webinars have been an important milestone in our collaboration.
What makes a project like this successful? For starters, it's the incredible community leaders who are on the ground organizing their friends, their families, their extended circles. They not only mobilize their communities to fight, they mobilize their communities to take care of each other. In working with community groups on the ground, look for leaders like these, leaders who are already doing the work, understanding the needs of the people around them, maintaining long-term relationships, and being invested in the place that they live. Second, find ways to create networks that share information, expertise, and resources. The leaders in Belmont County have long collaborated with a number of nonprofits in the area. They've even maintained cordial relationships with the Ohio EPA's permitting team. Whereas it would be so easy to just cross out regulators and villainize the agencies, members of court time and time again instead opt to bring them in, thank them, work with them, hoping that they could still be on our side and that with the right information, they could make change happen from the top down. Through working with the Ohio EPA, we've been able to raise a number of our concerns, especially about de minimis polluters who might be able to fly under the radar, cumulative emissions, regulatory infrastructure, and more. And finally, show up. Over the course of this project, our team has met every single week, rain or shine. And over time, I've come to develop immense respect and trust for these leaders, and I hope that after many months, they have come to trust me too. Very often, scientists show up to study a community project and leave once the journal article is done. Luckily, through this project, I've been supported by an immense network of Thriving Earth Exchange mentors and peers who are asking me, how do we change that? How do we keep showing up? I'd like to give this project credit for two big things. One, for using Zoom when nobody had heard about it, giving me a community who had made jokes about Zoom software before the rest of the world did during the pandemic. And two, the leaders in Belmont County have made mobilizing people look so easy, which it's not, but learning from them, it's getting easier. I've been able to use some of the same strategies to mobilize my peers in my hometown of Fremont, California, to give public comment at our city council meetings voting to defund the police from our high schools. Inspired by their example, I've been able to meet with some of the science policy teams of my representatives in Congress, so Senator Kamala Harris, Representative Eric Swalwell, Representative Ro Khanna, and really argue for the need for climate resilience, air pollution monitoring, wildlife relief, COVID stimulus packages, and more. I'd like to push all of you to imagine a better world where community action and scientific knowledge have power in holding polluters accountable, where profits that have long been made on the backs of our most marginalized communities are reinvested back into them. In 2018, New York State held Volkswagen accountable for what has since become known as one of the largest emission scandals. The payout from the settlement gave almost $20 million to state agencies, including the New York State Energy Research and Development Authority, also known as NYSERDA. Where many state agencies are usually strapped for cash or strapped for time, and we see a don't want to know approach, this huge settlement payout has given NYSERDA immense backing to study air pollution in their state, find runaway sources, understanding which communities might be most severely impacted by unseen pollutants, and change energy policy. As part of this NYSERDA research cohort, my team at Columbia University has been funded for a mobile monitoring campaign to drive around New York State and find uninventoried sources, leaks, and violations. In conjunction with aircraft, satellite, and fixed sensor studies, this work will point to why New York is seeing methane concentrations that are twice as high as predicted by our current emissions inventories. We're excited to not only study the issues, but then also create science-based energy policies that fix the problems. I have to mention that it's vital for scientists and institutions not only to work with and support community-led projects, but also to be supporting new, radical, justice-based pedagogy about how to support community-led science. So often, scientists and engineers drop into a community with good intentions to help, to save them, but they leave the communities having caused irreparable harm, wasting the resources, time, and energy of the community leaders, while scientists benefit from the publications and the social justice cloud. At Columbia University, a number of students have led the creation of the first Race, Climate Change, and Environmental Justice seminar, a class focused on deeply analyzing and evaluating the social justice issues that tie in so deeply with climate justice. We're following in the footsteps of many great examples, like the American Cultures as Engaged Scholars program at UC Berkeley, in which undergraduate students from across the university are required to take a racial justice course as a graduation requirement, and many of these courses center a guided service learning approach, which could include engineering consulting for a farm or teaching at a local high school. Students taking ACES courses are encouraged to actively contribute their skills to their community while learning by example from leaders and understanding the burdens and risks they might be creating on their community's priorities. We are seeing many guided service learning courses across universities that are really changing the way that our geoscientists think. And while we continue to advocate for resources for community projects, it's also vital to advocate for resources, funding, TAs, stipends, spaces for the pedagogical spaces that enable the work to happen intentionally, ethically, and effectively. As we wrap up, think about the change that you would like to see in your community. Think about who's already leading the movement for that change and how you and your resources could be contributing. Look to support the youth who are fighting for change, to the communities of color who are at the front lines, to the organizers who are setting up mutual aid networks even outside the cycles of electoral politics. Think critically about what you have access to and how it could make all the difference. I'll be happy to take questions about community-based science and science-based policymaking at our live session.